Hassan-i Sabbāh was a Nizārī Ismā a missionary who converted a community in the late 11th century in the heart of the Alborz Mountains of northern Persia. He later seized a mountain fortress called Alamut and used it as the headquarters for a decentralized Persian insurrection against the dominant Seljuk Turks. He founded a group of fedayeen whose members are sometimes referred to as the Hashshashin, or assassins. Sources: Hassan is thought to have written an autobiography, which did not survive but seems to underlie the first part of an anonymous Ismaili biography entitled Hassan-i Sabbāh. The latter is known only from quotations made by later Persian authors. Hassan also wrote a treatise, in Persian, on the doctrine of Ta'ala, called Al-Fusul al-Arba'ah. The text is no longer in existence, but fragments are cited or paraphrased by Al-Hashshashin and several Persian historians. He is the original Grand Master, creating many of its main principles and foundations. Early life and conversion. And Ray, the possibly autobiographical information found in Hassan-i Sabbāh is the main source for Hassan's background and early life. According to this, Hassan-i Sabbāh was born in the city of Qom in Persia in the 1050s to a family of 12 Shah-Yiro. Born and raised in Persia, his father was a Kufan Arab who claimed Yemenite origins, who left the Saudi of Kufa to settle in the town of Qom. Early in his life, his family moved to Ray. Ray was a city that had a history of radical thought since the 9th century, and it had seen Hamdan Kamata I as one of its voices. It was in this center of religious matrices that Hassan developed a keen interest in metaphysical matters and adhered to the 12 Code of Instruction. From 7 to 17, he studied at home, and mastered palmistry, languages, philosophy, astronomy and mathematics. Ray was also home to the activities of Ismaili missionaries in the Jibal. At the time, Ismailism was a growing movement in Persia and other lands east of Egypt. The Persian Ismaili supported the da'wah directed by the Fatimid Caliphate of Cairo and recognized the authority of the Imam Caliph al-Musta'nid to the first pounder, though Isfahan, rather than Cairo, may have functioned as their principal headquarters. The Ismaili mission worked on 3 layers. The lowest was the foot soldier or fedayeen, followed by the Ravaka or comrade, and finally the da'wah, or missionary. It has been suggested that the popularity of the Ismaili religion in Persia was due to the people's dissatisfaction with the Seljuk rulers, who had recently removed local rulers. In Ray, a young Hassan came in touch with a Murad Arab, a comrade, who introduced him to the Ismaili doctrine. Hassan was initially unimpressed. His interest gradually grew after participating in many passionate debates that discussed the merits of Ismaili over Mazar. Seeing the conviction of Darab, convinced Hassan to delve deeper into Ismaili doctrines and beliefs, ultimately convincing him to see merit in switching to the Ismaili faith. Conversion to Ismailism and training in Cairo. At the age of 17, Hassan converted and swore allegiance to the Fatimid Caliph in Cairo. Hassan's studies did not end with his crossing over. He further studied under 2 other da'wah, and as he proceeded on his path, he was looked upon with eyes of respect. Hassan's austere and devoted commitment to the da'wah brought him in audience with the chief missionary of the region, Abdul al-Malik ibn Attash. Ibn Attash, suitably impressed with the young 17-year-old Hassan, made him deputy missionary and advised him to go to Cairo to further his studies. However, Hassan did not go to Cairo. Some historians have postulated that Hassan, following his conversion, was playing host to some members of the Fatimid Caliphate, and this was leaked to the anti-Fatimid and anti-Shah vizier Nizam al-Mulk. This prompted his abandoning Ray and heading to Cairo in 1076. Hassan took about 2 years to reach Cairo. Along the way he toured many other regions that did not fall in the general direction of Egypt. Isfahan was the first city that he visited. He was hosted by one of the missionaries of his youth, a man who had taught the youthful Hassan in Ray. His name was Resi Abu Fasil, and he further instructed Hassan. From here he went to Caucasian Albania, hundreds of miles to the north, and from there through Armenia. Here he attracted the ire of priests following a heated discussion, and Hassan was thrown out of the town he was in. He then turned south and traveled through Iraq, reached Damascus in Syria. He left for Egypt from Palestine. Records exist, some in the fragmentary remains of his autobiography, and from another biography written by Rashid el-Din Hamadani in 1310, to date his arrival in Egypt at August 30, 1078. It is unclear how long Hassan stayed in Egypt, about 3 years is the usually accepted amount of time. He continued his studies here, and became a full missionary. Returned to Persia, whilst he was in Cairo, studying and preaching, he incurred the displeasure of the chief of the army, Badr al-Jamala. This may have been a result of the fact that Hassan supported Nizar, the Ismaili Imam Caliph al-Musta'nid to the first Pounder's elder son, as the next Imam. Hassan was briefly imprisoned by Badr al-Jamali. The collapse of a minaret of the jail was taken to be an omen in favor of Hassan and he was promptly released and deported. The ship that he was traveling on was wrecked. He was rescued and taken to Syria. Traveling via Aleppo and Baghdad, he terminated his journey at Isfahan in 1081. Hassan's life now was totally devoted to the mission. Hassan toured extensively throughout Persia. In northern Persia, touching the south shore of the Caspian Sea, are the mountains of Alborz. These mountains were home to a people who had traditionally resisted attempts at Turkish subjugation. This place was also a home of Shah Alinin. Of those people he met a strong-willed man named Datius who made the leap of faith into Christianity. Born in what is now Shiraz, Datius became a key factor in Hassan's mission. Within the mountains, in the region of Daylam, Hassan chose to pursue his missionary activities, after many experiences with Datius of the Mahmudian clan. With Hassan's teachings, Datius became one of the chief missionaries of that area and sent his personally trained missionaries into the rest of the region. The news of this Ismail's activities reached Nizam al-Mulk, who dispatched his soldiers with the orders for Hassan's capture. Hassan evaded them, and went deeper into the mountains. Capture of Alamut. His search for a base from which to guide his mission ended when in 1088 he found the castle of Alamut in the Rudbar area. It was a fort that stood guard over a valley that was about 50 kilometers long and 5 kilometers wide. This fortress had been built about the year 865. Legend has it that it was built by a king who saw his eagle fly up to and perch upon a rock, a propitious omen, the importance of which this king, Wasadhan ibn Marzuban, understood. Likening the perching of the eagle to a lesson given by it, he called the fort Aluram, Kht, the eagle's teaching. Hassan-i unregistered trademark takeover of the fort was conducted without any significant bloodshed. To effect this transition, Hassan employed a patient and deliberate strategy, one which took the better part of 2 years to effect. First, Hassan sent his Diin and Rafa Ks to win over the villages in the valley, and their inhabitants. Next, key people amongst this populace were converted, and finally, in 1090, Hassan took over the fort by infiltrating it with his converts. Hassan gave the former owner a draft drawn on the name of a wealthy landlord and told him to obtain the promised money from this man. When the landlord saw the draft with Hassan-i unregistered trademark signature, he immediately paid the amount to the fort's owner, astonishing him. Another, probably apocryphal version of the takeover states that Hassan offered 3,000 gold dinars to the fort's owner for the amount of land that would fit a buffalo unregistered trademark hide. The terms having been agreed upon, Hassan cut the hide into strips and linked them into a large ring around the perimeter of the fort, whose owner was thus undone by his own greed. This story bears a striking resemblance to Virgil's account of Dido's founding of Carthage. While legend holds that after capturing Alamut, Hassan thereafter devoted himself so faithfully to study, that in the nearly 35 years he was there he never left his quarters, excepting only 2 times when he went up to the roof. This reported isolation is highly doubtful, given his extensive recruiting and organizational involvement in the growing Ismaili insurrections in Persia and Syria. Nonetheless, Hassan was highly educated and was known for austerity, studying, translating, praying, fasting, and directing the activities of the Dawah. The propagation of the Nizārī doctrine was headquartered at Alamut. He knew the Quran by heart, could quote extensively from the texts of most Muslim sects, and apart from philosophy, was well versed in mathematics, astronomy, alchemy, medicine, architecture, and the major scientific disciplines of his time. In a major departure from tradition, Hassan declared Persian to be the language of holy literature for Nizaris, a decision that resulted in all the Nizārī Ismā literature from Persia, Syria, Afghanistan and Central Asia to be transcribed in Persian for several centuries. From this point on, his community and its branches spread throughout Iran and Syria and came to be called Hashshashin or assassins, also known as the fedayeen. See also, Firdas Iblis by Anlat Allah, Firdas Barin, Alamut, Notes. References, Firdas Iblis by Anlat Allah, Secondary sources, Daftari, Fahd, the Ismailis, Their History and Doctrines. 2nd ed. Cambridge A.L., 2007. Owen, Robert. Islam and the Crusades, 1096–1699. In the Oxford History of the Crusades, ed. Jonathan Riley Smith. Oxford, 2002. 211–57. Further reading, Firdas Iblis by Anlat Allah, Primary sources, Hassan-i Sabbah, Al-Fu'ar to the First El-Arabiya, Tr. Marshall G. S. Hodgson, in Ismaili Literature Anthology. A Vision of Islam, ed. Herman Landolt, Samira Sheikh and Qutub Qassam. London, 2008 ppA 149–52. Persian Treatise on the Doctrine of Ta'lim. The text is no longer extant, but fragments are cited or paraphrased by al-Shahrastani, and several Persian historians. Sarguzashti Sayyidina Nizam al-Mulk, al-Ghazali, Secondary sources, Daftari, Fahd, A Short History of the Ismailis. Edinburgh, Edinburgh University Press, 1998. Daftari, Fahd, The Assassin Legends, Myths of the Ismailis. London, I.B. Tauris and Company Limited, 1994. Reviewed by Babak Naid at ismaili.net, Daftari, Fahd, Hassan-i Sabbāh and the Origins of the Nizārī Ismā Movement. In Medieval Ismaili History and Thought, ed. Fahd Daftari. Cambridge, Cambridge University Press, 1996. 181–204. Hodgson, Marshall, The Order of Assassins. The Struggle of the Early Nizārī Ismā Against the Islamic World. The Hague, Mouton, 1955. Hodgson, Marshall, The Ismaili State. In the Cambridge History of Iran, Volume 5, The Seljuk and Mongol Periods, ed. J. A. Boyle. Cambridge, Cambridge University Press, 1968. 422–82. Lewis, Bernard, The Assassins. A Radical Sect in Islam. New York, Basic Books, 1968. Madelung, Wilford, Religious Trends in Early Islamic Iran. Albany, Bibliotheca Persica, 1988. 101–5. External links, Hassan bin Sabbah and Nizārī Ismaili State in Alamut, The Life of Hassan-i Sabbah from an Ismaili Point of View. Focuses on assassination as a tactic of asymmetrical warfare and has a small section on Hassan-i Sabbah's work as a scholar. Introduction to the Assassin Legends, The Life of Hassan-i Sabbah as part of an online book on the assassins of Alamut. Archon Darayal on Hassan-i Sabbah. An illustrated article on the Order of Assassins. William S. Burroughs' Invocation of Hassan-i Sabbah in Nova Express. Assassin's entry in the Encyclopedia of the Orient. Review of the book, The Assassin Legends, Myths of the Ismailis, 213 pp. By Babak Naid, Department of Comparative Literature, University of California, Los Angeles, Hassan bin Sabbah and the Secret Order of Hashshashins.